His name isn't Nick. An intriguing and genuine account of my 28F first experience with a dating application. I was deceived, but he continued to use his profile after I confronted him. In response, I deceived him back. I discovered who he truly is. He is a married man. This narrative is charged with drama, so don't overlook it. All identifying information about the man from the dating app will be modified or removed from this account. Summary: I was deceived. I caught him and called him out for it. He blocked me, but I learned that he was still maintaining his deceptive profile. Therefore, I deceived him back to gather additional evidence and uncover his real identity. I conducted some investigative work using the information I had through Google and found out who he genuinely is. And he is married. Prequel. Skip this section if you're not interested in how I arrived at dating apps. When I was 14 years old, my mother, 65F, had a candid discussion with me regarding the complexities sex introduces to relationships once you choose to engage with someone on that level. She wasn't incorrect. I recently concluded an engagement with someone who remains one of my closest friends, 31M. Ultimately, our sexual preferences and identities have evolved over the past 8 years, and they no longer align. We amicably separated regarding our engagement and living arrangements while still offering each other friendship and support. Sex complicates matters. Immediately after my engagement ended, I thought it would be a good idea to explore a few things with a man I had not yet experienced. Spoiler: it was not a good idea. Most of us are familiar with at least one toxic individual. We all know a Jacob, Jimmy, Jared, Justin, or Jordan. I'm sure some of us understand the experience of becoming close to someone struggling with substance abuse issues. Moreover, I not only engaged with a co-worker but also with my boss. I know. At least I got that all out of my system in one go, right? Never again. Sex complicates matters. The affair with my toxic boss concluded and I changed jobs. I have since determined that dating in the workplace is too messy for my taste. Approaching 30 years old, I had never used a dating app. I have always cultivated organic relationships. Yet, I was finally going to give dating apps a chance. Part 1: The Dating App. This is where the catfish story begins. Just before Thanksgiving 2024, snow was settling in for the winter across the Midwest, and I was searching for someone to keep me warm. I was uncertain about what I wanted from the experience. I was merely exploring and putting myself out there, open to anything that might capture my interest. It felt liberating to be free and flirtatious. I swiped on several men here and there, engaged in a few light conversations, but none really clicked. Then I encountered a profile that intrigued me for multiple reasons. Let's refer to him as Nick, 30M. 1. He was handsome. The photos on his profile certainly were. My best friend, 27F, remarked that the profile picture reminded her of a mix between my first serious boyfriend and my father. I forwarded her my next therapy bill for that, too. His bio was perfectly crafted, neither too much nor too little. He introduced himself and conveyed a bit of personality. He was transparent about his intentions and expectations, which seemed to align with mine, open to conversation and seeing where things might progress. 3. Although I wasn't using an app specifically designed for individuals interested in kink or BDSM, he mentioned in his bio, "Dominant ladies are encouraged to reach out." I would be lying if I said that didn't immediately pique my interest. It definitely stood out and was right up my alley. We matched and started chatting. You can probably guess the nature of our discussions. I'm not a fan of reading erotic literature because it feels like someone else's private encounter. It just doesn't resonate with me. However, writing my own stories with someone else to play off of, count me in. Sexting is akin to crafting erotic literature. We matched on November 24th and exchanged numbers the same night. We continued to communicate regularly throughout the holidays 3 to 4 times a week. Our conversations were primarily sexual, but not exclusively. We discussed our jobs, pets, holiday plans, hobbies, etc. We wished each other a happy Thanksgiving, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. We also flirted in light-hearted, playful ways, not all innuendo. We were attentive to each other's interests, pleasure, and limits regarding risque talk. We were clear about establishing boundaries if necessary. Honestly, this was all indicative of positive signs in our situation. It never felt overwhelming, just respectful, naughty, and enjoyable conversation. Having recently exited my engagement and my disastrous situationship, I realized that while I enjoyed our chats, I wasn't ready to jump back into anything physical or serious. I simply sought some low-risk, low-investment fun. Having my little chat buddy in Nick was genuinely ideal for me. I never worried about what he was doing in his life. I hadn't even considered he might be anything other than how he presented himself in his dating profile, including being single. Though we never shared photos featuring our faces, I didn't think much of it because the images we exchanged weren't exactly safe. However, there were subtle hints in the photos I received, leading me to believe I was indeed conversing with the man depicted in the profile pictures. Glasses, beard, skin tone, etc. Verified photo profiles were effective. Hooray! However, I have a detrimental tendency to refrain from fully enjoying experiences because I am afraid of becoming too involved and ultimately losing them. I merely wanted low-risk, low-investment fun, right? Okay, you anxious, accommodating, optimistic Libra. Good luck with that. Historically, when everything seems to be going well and I'm simply enjoying life, anxiety whispers to me that I should become overly cautious, perhaps even to the point of self-sabotage. But was it anxiety this time? Or was it a woman's intuition? Part 2, discovering the deception. I specifically chose the dating app I did because it had a photo verification option. I filtered out non-verified profiles, believing I was safe from being deceived. Right. Wrong. When I initially matched with Nick in November, I performed a reverse Google image search for his pictures, but found nothing. About a week after New Year's, I felt compelled to check the images again, and this time I did not come up empty. These images did not belong to anyone named Nick, but rather a man who created his own business, prominently featuring his face as part of the brand. I immediately called my best friend, filled with anger and shaking. All I could exclaim upon her answering was, "His name isn't Nick." I was so confused and needed answers immediately. The man in the photos was a person I'll refer to as Jack 43M. Jack owns a business that prominently features his face and has a considerable social media presence. But remember, my matched profile was photo verified. The few images I had received through text, which offered glimpses of his face and beard, matched those photos. So was I actually communicating with Jack, who presented the truth of his appearance but fabricated his identity? What was the reality here? My best friend and I explored Jack's social media together via FaceTime screen share. I was trying to determine if the hands belonging to Jack matched those of the man depicted in the pictures I had received. Unfortunately for Jack, they seemed strikingly similar down to the same hitchhiker's thumb and matching prominent lunulas, the crescent shape at the base of some fingernails. As we worked to confirm whether this truly was Jack, and I increasingly felt it was, we uncovered that Jack has a wife and 2 children. Could this be the reason someone used their own image but crafted a false story? A thriving, multi-million-dollar business and family? Perhaps some people have done far crazier things for sex, or am I just paranoid? Having seen enough evidence, I felt compelled to confront Nick. I explained how I figured out the truth, citing which image of his yielded a search result. I informed him that after everything I had disclosed about my life, I deserved to know the truth and to understand how I had been communicating with. I indicated I had 2 theories. A. He was Nick using a false picture to deceive me, or B. His name was actually Jack, and he was a husband and father. I leaned toward theory B and asked if his wife was aware he was engaging with me in this manner. The response I received was unexpected. "You're correct. You deserve the truth. It's option A. My name is Nick, and all of the pictures I've sent you are of me, but the initial profile pictures aren't. I apologize for deceiving you. I never anticipated things would escalate this far. You didn't deserve this, and I regret letting things get out of hand." Then he blocked my number, unmatched me, and vanished. I was devastated. Not only was he the first person I ever matched with, I had shared that with him, and he told me he was honored and felt he had hit the jackpot with me. I suddenly felt distrustful of others. I realized I was evidently poor at reading situations since this had continued for 6 weeks. I had been misled, and I detested that. Almost equally distressing was losing my fun companion without warning. Sex complicates matters. For 3 days, I was intermittently upset. A mixture of overwhelming feelings of embarrassment, Loneliness, shame, loss, and a lack of self-trust burdened me. I felt burned after believing I had done my due diligence to protect myself from being deceived. On the fourth day, I shared my experience with a friend from work 24F, seeking her advice on how to move forward because being upset for 3 days had been enough. I figured I was only involved with this man long enough for 1.5 refills of my prescription antidepressants, and I wasn't about to spend the next 3 refills getting over it. She used the same dating app for her own purposes. When I described the guy, his profile, and delved into the story, she suddenly exclaimed, "Girl, is this the guy's profile?" She had been searching for him as I recounted the tale without my realization. She showed me her phone, and sure enough, it was his profile, and he was still active on the app. I finished sharing the whole story, and we ultimately decided that moving on wasn't the way to go. It was time to be audacious. A second go at this game was necessary. I despised losing. I would use this opportunity to finally discover the truth about who Nick, or Jack, really is. Part 3. Full audacity. With my friend's consent and borrowed photos, we created a new profile and quickly found and matched with Nick. We communicated for 2 weeks intensely, if not more than how we interacted prior to the catfishing incident. Nick reused photos that he had sent me before the deception and even echoed ideas that I had previously shared. The nerve of these men. Ladies, do not share your secrets, tips, and tricks. They're taking your insights and trying them elsewhere. It was incredibly challenging not to call him out each time he repeated my ideas, but I just laughed. I guess I made an impression. Finally, after 2 weeks, I felt I had gathered enough evidence to prove that this man was, indeed, not the person in the profile photos, Jack. The foot pictures I requested did not match a photograph of Jack's feet I discovered on his Instagram. A body photo of Nick did not align with a shirtless image of Jack I found in one of his videos. Nick has small moles on his dad bod belly, whereas Jack has a flat and fit torso without moles. What Nick proclaimed when I initially caught him might actually hold some truth. But how did he manage the photo verification? That question lingered. It was time to discuss this with Nick, should he be willing. I revealed my true identity. He did not block me. I gave him some time to contemplate the situation, and we communicated again the following day. Ultimately, he expressed that this whole situation was a peculiar wake-up call for him to leave the dating app and focus on self-improvement to understand why he engaged in such behaviors. Despite not unmatching my catfish profile or deleting his profile, as far as I could tell, he has not been active on it since we stopped communicating. When I inquired how he verified the photos, he stated he genuinely resembled the man whose images he utilized. The main reason I did this was to explore that aspect of myself anonymously, so I chose someone whose appearance I could closely emulate to experience the validation of women being attracted to that face, while being transparent about the part of myself I shared. Nick. I questioned him about his feelings as the deceived party, and he admitted he had been misled previously, so this wasn't entirely a new experience for him, but it was the most involved he had ever been. Ultimately, we agreed that even with our cards laid on the table, we were uninterested in pursuing this any further. Trust is a critical element in the kink community, and we had just undergone a profoundly untrustworthy ordeal with each other. Sex complicates matters. We wished each other well and hoped to grow beyond the barriers that constrained us before disconnecting. But now I possessed new information. I had a feeling there was still more to uncover. Part 4, final. His name isn't Nick, but his middle name is Nick. Do you recall in the beginning when I mentioned we talked about matters beyond just sex? We also shared information about our professions. Nick has a rather specific job. I decided I would make one final effort to uncover his true identity. I conducted a reverse search of his job title and the major city he claimed to be associated with, leading me to a single program or entity that specializes in the service related to his job. They possess a LinkedIn page and have subgroups based on various departments. I narrowed down what I believed was his particular department from his description. While LinkedIn would not disclose the names of individuals in this group, it did provide each person's photo, job title, and where the name is normally located, it stated private LinkedIn member. Feeling close to a breakthrough, I persevered. Scrolling through the list, I located a photo of a man who closely resembled the original catfish photo. This was precisely how he claimed to have verified his profile. I copied that job title and entered it into Google and LinkedIn. This yielded 3 direct profile results, and the third one was his. I had his name. From there, I began searching for social media accounts and eventually found a Facebook profile. His most current profile picture dated back to June 2022, displaying him and his wife in their wedding photo. The real kicker for me was his response. Whenever I complimented him in our conversations, he would reply with, "Well, shucks." Someone had commented on that lovely wedding picture of him and his stunning wife, remarking on how wonderful they appeared. His response, "Well, shucks, thanks." After conducting further investigative work via Google, I uncovered additional social media accounts where he shared photos of a cat with the same name along with pictures that aligned with those he had sent me. This was without a doubt him. Eventually, I also located an Instagram account belonging to his wife. I sent her a message. "I apologize for reaching out, but I believe in supporting women wholeheartedly. Does your husband have your consent to be on dating apps, engaged in discussions with women regarding his sexual fantasies while sending them images of himself? If not, I have proof showing he has been in contact with me since just before Thanksgiving 2024, and I will share everything with you." I cannot determine if she has seen the message or not, but she has not replied. Instagram limits you to sending only one message of a specific length and no image transfers when messaging someone you do not follow who does not follow you. I sent her a follow request, but it remains unanswered. I am aware my message went into her message request folder, yet I am uncertain if she has noticed it. I have identified alternative methods to reach out, but I am unsure if I should proceed. If she has seen it and chose not to respond, I feel that continuing to reach out would be harassment. On the flip side, I wonder if my message remains unread in her requests and she is entirely oblivious. So that is my current situation, everyone. After this investigation and determining who he truly is, I feel 99% relieved to finally know who I was communicating with all along and for attempting to contact his wife. Should she respond, I will certainly provide an update. I hope you found this unfortunate true story enjoyable. Story 2. Steal my design and get all the credit. Enjoy getting kicked off. My friend in Korea is studying fashion design. Occasionally, she sends me her sketches of various designs, all of which look incredible. Though, to be honest, I am not particularly into fashion. She has a keen interest in designing handbags and purses. She recounted an incident in which she confronted one of the most self-serving, entitled, and lazy students on campus. Cast, Grace, our main character. Jane, the antagonist professor, the course instructor story. Initially, Grace and Jane got along quite well. They shared similar interests and quickly became best friends. Grace shared her handbag and purse sketches with Jane, who was thoroughly impressed. The sketches featured exceptional detail, showcasing intricate patterns and sewing lines, along with precise measurements. Even the professor was impressed, which resulted in Grace receiving a high grade on their first significant exam. In contrast, Jane struggled considerably and began to shadow Grace, hoping to gain advice on how to improve. Grace agreed to assist her. However, Jane proved to be one of the most selfish, lazy, and entitled individuals Grace had ever encountered. Jane's irritating habits included, but were not limited to, not paying attention, arriving late to their study sessions, failing to express gratitude, not contributing to coffee or snacks, constantly complaining about how challenging drawing was. Grace ultimately lost patience with her after a week and refused to meet Jane outside of class. As time passed, the class was tasked with presenting their designs for the midterm. When it was Jane's turn, Grace was horrified to find that Jane had plagiarized one of her designs. Fortunately, Grace had multiple designs to present, which prevented any conflict during her turn, but she was filled with anger. Afterward, Grace met with the professor, who was aware of the situation but felt powerless to act against Jane, as Jane was the daughter of the chairman or one of the major investors. Grace could not remember precisely. The chairman had allegedly coerced the professor into granting Jane top grades. The revenge. Nevertheless, the professor assisted Grace in devising a plan to humiliate and expose Jane. For the final exam, the professor announced that each student would present 3 designs, urging them to bring their best work, as professionals from the industry would be evaluating them, with the department head and the chairman also in attendance. As you may know, Grace had a plethora of sketches for class. Additionally, Grace possessed a separate sketchbook filled with designs from prominent brands like Michael Kors and Coach. She had never used these directly for assignments, but rather drew inspiration from them for her own creations. Grace pretended to be friendly with Jane once more and brought the other sketchbook to their meetings, enduring all the aforementioned issues. Grace diligently worked on her new design, ensuring she kept it hidden from Jane. The day of the final presentation arrived, and both Grace and the professor were smiling, aware of the outcome that awaited Jane. Grace presented first and received abundant praise from the judges. After several more presentations, it was Jane's turn. Jane's presentation, unfortunately, turned out to be yet another imitation, as she had replicated designs from not one, but 3 different companies. Following her presentation, the exchange went as follows, at least from Grace's perspective. Judge 1. So you are claiming that you created all these by yourself, correct? Jane, that's correct. Judge 1. And you swear that these designs are genuinely yours and not copied from anything else, right? Jane, I swear. Judge 1. You do realize that your designs belong to 3 brands. Jane, Judge 1. Are you aware that these are currently on the market and are among the most popular designs? Jane, wait, hold on. Judge 2. Yes, I was just about to mention this. If you had been employed by any of these brands, you likely would have been terminated or, in the worst-case scenario, sued. Jane, but Judge 2, please, I am not finished yet. Did you genuinely believe this would work? We, the judges, have over 10 years of experience in the industry. We can identify a copycat when we see one. Jane, but these aren't even my designs. They belong to Grace. Judge 3, to Grace, is this accurate? Grace, yes, but I would never use them for major projects or claim them as my work. I merely use their sketches for inspiration for my own designs. Judge 3, well, that was evident from your presentation. Turning back to Jane now, Miss Jane, this is a blatant case of plagiarism, and I sincerely hope your school handles this matter justly. After the presentation concluded, the chairman erupted in anger at the professor in front of the entire class, inadvertently revealing the blackmail and secret grading arrangement. Jane attempted to accuse Grace of screwing her over, but it was futile. No one paid attention to Jane's attempts to slander Grace, and she was expelled from the school. The chairman ultimately lost all support and was compelled to resign, with a far more honorable and capable individual taking his place. Edit. It's only been 3 hours, and I have already received a silver award. Thank you, everyone. For those saying that this sounds like a fake plot from a webtoon or a Korean drama, let me assure you that incidents like this occur frequently in Korea. However, in most cases, victims tend to accept their losses and avoid making a fuss to escape the infamy that would follow. If you think gossiping and baseless rumors are problematic in American universities, wait until you experience the dynamics in Korean colleges. Additionally, the plots of webtoons and K-dramas are often based on or inspired by real-life occurrences. I also forgot to mention that Grace achieved excellent results and received a recommendation for an apprenticeship or internship in Paris, which was unfortunately canceled due to COVID-19.